Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Look, today we're unpacking something incredibly heavy, but absolutely crucial. We're zooming right in on a case that literally gripped national attention recently, the shocking events in Chitrakoot. And we're going to use that specific case as a lens to look at the broader reality of India's POCSO Act, the protection of children from sexual offenses. We've got a lot of ground to cover. We're talking the timeline of the crime, the wild digital fallout, the historical context of this specific region, and then the hard data on how our legal system is actually handling these devastating cases nationwide. There is a ton to get through, so let's just jump right in. Okay, let's dive into this, because there's a real tension at the heart of this explainer today. On one hand, we're looking at this incredibly intense 96-hour police manhunt that happened right after the horrific assaults of a 20-year-old NEET aspirant and her 17-year-old companion in the Devagana Valley forest. Now, the swift arrests in this case definitely brought some measure of acknowledgement that, hey, the system can actually respond. It brought this wave of cautious relief. But as you'll see as we unpack this, catching the suspects, that's really just the opening chapter in a much, much longer and far more complex pursuit of justice. So let's break down exactly how this unfolded, because it happened fast. On July 22nd, the crime takes place in the super remote Devangana Valley area. The victims were bound and assaulted by 3 men pretending to be force personnel. Now, what completely turned the tide of this investigation within the very first 24 hours? CCTV. Investigators actually managed to secure footage of 3 suspects riding a motorcycle together, and boom, that became the absolute linchpin of the whole case. By July 26th, the net is closing in. The main accused, Jitendra, is intercepted in the Mardfa forest, and this actually leads to a shootout, where both he and a police constable are injured. But within a total of just 96 hours, the remaining 2 suspects, Vivek and Praveen, are arrested. This timeline is a massive testament to what coordinated police work, electronic surveillance, and just really quick action can actually achieve. But almost immediately, a whole secondary crisis blew up in the digital world. The police had to issue these incredibly strict warnings to the public. Why? Because people were actively searching for and sharing a supposed viral video of the assault. And the authorities had to make it crystal clear. Downloading, storing, or forwarding this content is a serious crime. No exceptions. It's enforced heavily under the Information Technology Act, the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and because a minor was involved here, the POCSO Act is directly triggered. The cyber cell was literally tracking IP addresses and digital footprints to shut this down. Plus, they had to fight off this huge wave of fake videos and rumors. There was even a totally false rumor spreading that the survivor had died. The massive takeaway here for all of us? Our digital behavior in the wake of a tragedy like this carries huge legal and frankly moral weight. Now, as we step back from that specific 96-hour timeline, we really have to acknowledge a much darker context here. Because this recent assault, unfortunately, it's not some isolated incident in the Chitrakoot region. This specific area has a genuinely troubling history when it comes to the safety of young people. Just to give you an example, regional reports highlight this utterly tragic case of a 17-year-old gang rape survivor who ultimately took her own life. It's heartbreaking, and it really forces us to ask some tough structural questions about the region, the vulnerability of its youth and those systemic challenges that are somehow allowing these horrific patterns to keep repeating themselves. To really wrap your head around how deeply rooted some of these regional issues are, I want you to consider this number, 2021. That was the year a Lucknow special court actually sentenced former UP cabinet minister Gayatri Prajapati to life in prison. And the crime? A 2017 gang rape case that also originated right there in Chitrakoot. A woman alleged she was assaulted on the pretext of being allotted a mining license, and her minor daughter was targeted as well. This is such a vital piece of context. First, it shows the severe systemic nature of these crimes in this specific geography. But second, it proves that when the legal machinery actually works, it can hold even the most powerful political figures accountable. Literally no one is above the law. And that brings us to a highly contested issue regarding the region's illegal mining industry. We're just going to look at this totally impartially based on the reports we have. So on one side, an investigation by India Today claimed that during the lockdown, minor girls from poor tribal families in Chitrakoot's illegal mines were being forced into severe sexual exploitation for as little as 150 to 200 rupees. It's an incredibly heavy claim. But on the other side, local authorities have a very different stance. The UP police and the district magistrate came out with strong, categorical denials of these claims. They said they conducted inquiries in the specific villages mentioned and stated that the families completely denied any such exploitation ever occurred. So we're not here to take a side, right? We're just presenting the reality of the discourse. You have severe allegations from the media on one hand and absolute official denials from the local government on the other. So you have rapid arrests, wild digital misinformation, this deep-rooted regional history, and heavily contested media reports. It all leads us to one massive question. How does the legal system actually handle these widespread and incredibly complex cases once the police finally hand them over? Well, before we look at the national data and the legal framework to answer that, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the bell icon so you never miss an explainer. Okay, so when we move from the physical crime scene into the actual courtroom and look at the macro level, we start to realize that prosecuting these cases is almost never straightforward. They very quickly turn into these intense legal and jurisdictional battlegrounds. You'll frequently see accused individuals using procedural laws to challenge where trial can even be held, basically aiming to derail or delay the whole justice process. Understanding these battles is absolutely essential if we want to understand why swift arrests definitely do not always mean swift justice. Let's look at exactly how this plays out in the real world, using a high court case involving a man named Ram Sahai Singh. He was accused of kidnapping and assaulting a minor in the Chitrakoot area. Now, the defense tried to argue that the Chitrakoot court had zero jurisdiction. They pointed to Section 177 of the Criminal Procedure Code, which generally says trials happen where the offense was committed, arguing the initial act happened somewhere else. But the court stepped in and applied Section 178 because the survivor's statements showed the abuse was a continuing offense occurring across multiple locations, including Chitrakoot. The court ruled that no, Chitrakoot absolutely maintained jurisdiction. It perfectly highlights how the law has these very specific tools to stop perpetrators from just using geography as a legal loophole. But, this whole jurisdictional battle is really just a symptom of the sheer scale of the challenge our courts are facing right now. When we actually look at the data, the trend is pretty alarming. Back in 2017, POCSO cases made up about 25% of total crimes against children. By 2018, that grew to 28%. And by 2019, POCSO cases accounted for a staggering 32% of all crimes against children in India. Think about that for a second. That basically means nearly 1 in every 3 reported crimes against a child is of a sexual nature. The burden falling on the legal system is just growing rapidly every single year. But what actually happens to those cases once they're in the system? Well, the reality of conviction rates under the POCSO Act varies wildly from state to state. At the very top, you've got places like Manipur and Chandigarh showing a 100% conviction rate, which sounds amazing. But as you move down to the states that are handling the vast majority of the actual case volume, the picture completely changes. States like Uttar Pradesh sit at 63.5%, Delhi is at 59.1%, and Madhya Pradesh is down at 39.4%. The national average is actually hovering around 34.2%. So the really crucial point here is that while the police might be able to make an arrest in 96 hours, securing a conviction in court, it is statistically a massive uphill battle, especially in the states with the highest populations. And right beyond those official conviction rates lies this staggering, hidden reality that we absolutely have to talk about. When we discuss PSOO, 99% of registered victims are female. However, the data shows that male child victims of penetrative sexual assault increased by 25% in 2018 alone. Even more shocking, a study by the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation indicates that roughly 5.8 crore male children are abused every single year in India. 5.8 crore! Yet the number of officially registered cases is practically negligible. Why? Because of intense shame, immense fear, and just severe social stigma. We simply cannot have an honest conversation about India's PSOO reality without acknowledging the millions of boys who are suffering in complete silence. Which brings us to our final and deeply pressing thought for today. The data clearly tells us that cases are rising. The Chitrakoot case proves that yes, police can act incredibly fast, but the conviction data, it exposes a massive bottleneck. Look, the government actually planned to set up 1,023 fast-track courts specifically designed to handle these cases. Yet, recent data shows only 612 of them are currently functional. So, I'm going to leave you with this question to ponder. Will our judicial infrastructure ever be able to outpace the rising tide of these horrific crimes? Or will the gap between a swift 96-hour arrest and a final court verdict just continue to deny true justice to survivors? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the data, and I'll see you in the next one.